there was the economies of scale, where you could train people, where you could spend money on upper education centres. In Lothian region, for instance, we were the lead. There was an upper education teacher in every single school, every secondary school, at least one bus, sometimes two or three. There were racks and canoes in the playgrounds, classrooms given over to racks with upper education clothing. It was wonderful. It really was. There was a whole generation who took advantage of that. I think benefited from it. Our policies on our policy, which we share with the English Green Party, the citizens' income, would abolish the present support system, the present benefit system. It would remove the poverty gap where it's better actually for many people if they're responsible for their children to actually be able to work so they can get enough benefits to support their children properly. Because the present relatively low rate of minimum income isn't enough. And there are many employees that don't actually even pay that. Still left. I could go on and on, but we do have real and radical policies which, when an opportunity presents itself, we do campaign for and talk about. And people are beginning to talk about this. We've got a taxation policy and value taxation, which people are beginning to talk about in the Parliament. And maybe we will get it introduced in parallel with other taxes. Basic thing about the LBT is we'd have to have a cadastral register of land. Nobody knows who owns about 20% of Scotland's land. Don't even know who owns it. Most of it's probably owned abroad. And that's why we don't know. With LBT, it would be the owners of the land who pay the tax. And people couldn't invest in like the Scottish land. The United States or land rate, underlying trusts, buy land in Scotland is an investment to be spent on the traditional attitude to land in Scotland is that more than people who have personal ownership. And it is that so the people who like to claim they own it, it's actually their institution is led to them trust. That's my attitude. I don't like to be a landowner on any other result from land.
I think at the moment we're just going to be running out of time, so if anyone has a few more quick questions, we'll take them all at once and then we'll get to the answers. So
I think we're very good at that.
I'll do my best. We can take both questions we have waiting at once and then we can answer.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Mine's back on the economic difficulties and those. I think it is the case with the Greens that the inconvenient truth is when people have struggled to pay their bills at the end of the month, when they're struggling economically, they don't care so much about obscure scientific theories about global warming. People are going to put on their wallets rather than on environmental issues.
Absolutely. But the green answers are the ones that are going to save people's wallets. It's win-win-win with green policies. It really is. If you look at any green policy, it's a policy that saves you, common person, the consumer, money. It gives you more money to spend on nice things like leisure.
Yep. Alright, it's maybe not a good last question, but it is a policy question. We'll get back to it. Of course, any discussion on green policy is incomplete without a discussion of nuclear power. And obviously we've talked a lot about energy conservation, but in terms of, my question is in the short term for the environment, with all this evidence coming out, particularly like in intermittent truth and all these things, in the mass media as well as scientific research, that global warming is becoming an immediate issue, and that it must be acted, say, within the next 5-10 years, there could be these permanent changes. Would you not agree that perhaps, maybe in the long term, green power is sustainable, or alternative sources of green energy are the ideal solution, but in the short term, we should keep what nuclear power we have now, since it doesn't emit carbon?
Okay. I was contesting it isn't emitting much carbon at the moment. It doesn't emit carbon in its general operation. but you have to look at long life. For most studies on nuclear power compared to gas and wind power show quite clearly that nuclear power is about competitive with gas. It's not competitive with any of the other softer renewables, right? Well, gas isn't a renewable anyway. And this because you have to take into account the carbon emissions from the building of the station, the carbon emissions from running the station, as opposed to